I woke up in a strange room that smelled like disinfectant and betrayal. The nurse called it Shady Pines. Said my daughter checked me in for my own good. The last thing I remembered was signing something she said was for my medication. It wasn't. It was a voluntary admission form to a nursing home. My daughter had trapped me, erased my independence with a fake smile and a pen. But she forgot one thing. The apartment she's been living in, rent-free for 6 years, it's mine. And now I'm the one writing her eviction notice. Before the story begins, subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. My name is Dorothy Callahan, and I'm 68 years old. Not ancient, not senile, not ready to be warehoused like expired merchandise. But apparently, my daughter Jennifer didn't get that memo. Let me back up. I was married to Robert Callahan for 39 years. He was a contractor, built houses, fixed things, made our life comfortable through hard work and calloused hands. We weren't wealthy, but we were secure. We raised Jennifer in a 3-bedroom house in a good neighborhood, sent her to college, gave her everything we could. Robert died 4 years ago from a heart attack while fixing Mrs. Patterson's deck. Just collapsed, gone before the ambulance arrived. I thought I'd die too from the grief, but I didn't. I kept going because that's what you do. After Robert passed, I sold our house. Too many memories, too many rooms echoing with his absence. I moved into a small condo, downsized my life, and invested the remaining money carefully. Robert had always been smart about finances. We had a modest portfolio, some rental property, savings. He'd made sure I'd be okay. One of those properties was a 2-bedroom apartment in a decent part of town. We'd bought it 20 years ago as an investment, rented it out for years. When the last tenants left 3 years ago, Jennifer was going through a divorce, a messy one, with her ex-husband draining their joint accounts and leaving her with debt and a shattered life. She called me crying, "Mom, I have nowhere to go. Trevor took everything. I can't afford rent anywhere decent. I'm your daughter. Please." "Don't you want your daughter nearby? What if you need me?" That last one always worked. Because after Robert died, I did feel alone. Having Jennifer close by felt comforting, even if I rarely saw her. She's busy, always busy with work, with friends, with her life. But knowing she was just 20 minutes away made the silence of my condo less suffocating. I should have seen the signs, should have noticed that her concern was always transactional, always timed to when I asked about the apartment or suggested she contribute to property taxes or maintenance. And I was lonely, and loneliness makes you stupid. The trouble started about 8 months ago. What was I supposed to say? No? So I let her move into the apartment, rent-free, just until you get back on your feet, I said. 6 months, maybe a year. That was 6 years ago. Jennifer was 43 now, working as an office manager for a dental practice. She made decent money, not great, but enough to afford rent somewhere. But she never left my apartment. She settled in, redecorated, acted like it was hers. Every time I gently suggested she start looking for her own place, she'd find an excuse. "I'm still paying off Trevor's debt, Mom. The market's too expensive right now. I'm saving for a down payment. Living here helps me save faster." I'd been having dizzy spells. Nothing dramatic, just occasional lightheadedness when I stood up too fast or skipped meals. My doctor said it was probably low blood pressure, combined with mild dehydration. "Drink more water, Mrs. Callahan. Take it easy when standing. You're fine." But when I mentioned it to Jennifer during one of our monthly dinners, her reaction was disproportionate. "Dizzy spells? Mom, that's serious. That's how Grandma started, remember? The dizziness. Then the falls, then the dementia. Your grandmother was 92. I'm 68, and my doctor says I'm fine. Doctors miss things. You need more tests. What if you fall and hit your head? What if you have a stroke and no one finds you for days? Jennifer, I'm not an invalid. I'm just worried about you. You're living alone. You're getting older. These things happen fast. She started calling me daily after that, checking in. At first, it felt nice. Maternal concern, daughterly love. But the questions got stranger. Did you remember to take your pills today? I only take a multivitamin and blood pressure medication. Are you sure? You don't sound sure. Jennifer, I'm sure. Okay, but maybe write it down, just in case you forget. Or, how was your bridge club today? Did you remember how to get there? I've been going to the same community center for 15 years. I know, but memory issues can start subtly. Did you get lost at all? No. Are you certain? Because Mrs. Patterson told me you seemed confused last week at the grocery store. That one stopped me cold. Mrs. Patterson? When did you talk to her? I ran into her. She mentioned you asked her the same question twice. About tomatoes or something. Because she didn't hear me the first time. She's deaf in one ear. Right, of course. I'm worried, Mom. It was gaslighting disguised as concern, but I didn't have the vocabulary for it yet. I just felt increasingly anxious, second-guessing myself. Had I asked Mrs. Patterson twice? Was I forgetting things? The more Jennifer planted seeds of doubt, the more I started believing maybe something was wrong with me. Then came the incident with the bills. I've always paid my bills on time. Compulsive about it, actually. But one month, my credit card payment was late. I got a notification, paid it immediately with the late fee, and didn't think much of it. These things happen. Mail gets lost. Online systems glitch. But Jennifer found out. I don't know how. Maybe she was monitoring my credit. Maybe I mentioned it. She showed up at my condo unannounced, holding printouts of my credit report. Mom, we need to talk. You missed a payment. It was one payment. I handled it. This is exactly what I was afraid of. You're losing track of things. Bills, appointments, medication. I'm not losing track of anything. It was one late payment in 40 years of perfect credit. That you know of. Have you checked your other accounts? What if there are more you haven't noticed? She sat down at my kitchen table, spreading papers in front of me like evidence at a trial. Bank statements, credit reports, utility bills. Where had she gotten all this? Jennifer, how do you have my financial documents? You gave me access, remember? After Dad died, for emergencies. I had given her access to one checking account in case something happened to me. Not permission to surveil my entire financial life. This feels invasive. This is protective, Mom. Look, I'm not trying to control you. I'm trying to help. But you have to admit, things are slipping. The dizziness, the late payment, the confusion, these are warning signs. We need to be proactive. Proactive how? Maybe it's time to consider options. For later. Not now, she added quickly, seeing my face. But eventually. Assisted living places have waiting lists. We should tour a few, just to get ahead of it. I'm not going to a nursing home, Jennifer. Not a nursing home. Assisted living. There's a difference. Nice places, with activities and socialization. You're isolated here, Mom. Wouldn't it be nice to have people around? I have people around. I have bridge club, book club, my neighbors. When was the last time you saw any of them? I opened my mouth, closed it. The truth was, I'd been canceling plans lately. The anxiety Jennifer kept stoking made me afraid to drive, afraid I'd forget something or embarrass myself. I'd been retreating into my condo, into isolation, which is exactly what she wanted, I'd realize later. Just think about it, Jennifer said, gathering her papers. Tour one facility with me. That's all I'm asking. If you hate it, we never talk about it again. To get her to leave, I agreed. The next week, she drove me to Shady Pines Retirement Community. The name alone should have been a warning. Nothing good is ever named Shady anything. But I went. and I hated it immediately. It was one of those places trying desperately to not look like what it was. Pastel walls, artificial flower arrangements, staff members with aggressively cheerful voices calling residents sweetie and hun. The residents themselves looked defeated, sitting in wheelchairs by windows, staring at nothing, playing bingo with the enthusiasm of prisoners counting days. "Isn't it nice?" Jennifer said, smiling at a nurse who was spoon-feeding pudding to a woman who definitely didn't need help eating. "So clean, so organized, everyone's taken care of." "Everyone's warehoused," I muttered. "Mom, don't be dramatic." We toured the rooms, tiny, institutional, with hospital beds and grab bars and emergency pull cords. The director, a woman named Brenda with a helmet of blonde hair and a pantsuit that screamed middle management, walked us through the amenities. "We have 3 meals daily in our dining hall, medication management, 24-hour nursing staff, weekly activities like arts and crafts, movie nights, church services." "What about independence?" I interrupted. "Can residents come and go freely?" Brenda's smile tightened. "For our independent living residents, yes. For those in memory care or assisted living, we have protocols for safety." "Protocols, so no." "Mrs. Callahan, our priority is resident safety. Many of our residents have cognitive impairments that make unsupervised outings dangerous." "I don't have cognitive impairments." "Of course not. But your daughter mentioned some concerns." I turned to Jennifer. "What concerns did you mention?" She had the grace to look embarrassed. "Just the dizziness and the bill thing. I was asking what level of care would be appropriate if things progressed." Quick sentence. If things progressed. Not when. If. Because nothing is progressing, Jennifer. We left shortly after. The car ride home was silent, until Jennifer said, "You didn't even give it a chance, because I don't need it." "Not yet. But Mom, you're 68. Dad died at 71. What if something happens? What if you fall and no one finds you? What if your memory gets worse and you can't manage?" "Then I'll deal with it then, not now." She dropped me off without another word. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. Over the next few months, Jennifer intensified her campaign. She'd call with articles about elderly people dying alone in their homes. She'd mention friends whose parents had strokes and couldn't call for help. She'd ask pointed questions about whether I'd remembered to eat, implying I was neglecting myself. She convinced Lee to give her power of attorney just in case. Said it was standard, something everyone should do. I signed the papers at her kitchen table, my kitchen table, in my apartment, without reading them carefully. She was my daughter. I trusted her. First mistake. She convinced me to add her to my bank accounts for emergencies. Said if something happened, she'd need access to pay my bills. I agreed. Second mistake. After dinner, she pulled out some papers. "Mom, I need you to sign these. Just updates to your medication list for the pharmacy." I was tipsy from the wine, tired from cooking. The papers looked official. Pharmacy letterhead, lists of medications. I skimmed them, saw my prescriptions listed, and signed where she indicated. "Thanks, Mom. This'll make refills easier." She left shortly after, kissing my cheek at the door. I woke up the next morning in Shady Pines. Not in my condo, not in my bed. In a hospital-style bed, in a pastel room, with grad bars and an emergency pull cord, and the smell of old people and resignation. I thought I was dreaming, or having a stroke. I pressed the call button frantically. A nurse came in, young, bored, checking her phone. "Oh good, you're awake. I'm Stephanie. How are we feeling this morning?" "Where am I? What happened?" "You're at Shady Pines, sweetie. Your daughter checked you in yesterday. Said you'd been having episodes. Couldn't live alone safely anymore." "Episodes? What episodes? I was fine. I was at home." Stephanie's expression shifted to practiced sympathy. "I know this is disorienting. A lot of residents are confused at first, But you're safe here. Your daughter did the right thing. I want to go home, now. Let me get the director. She can explain everything. Brenda arrived 20 minutes later with a file folder and that same insufferable smile. Mrs. Callahan, so glad you're settling in. How did you sleep? I want to leave. There's been a mistake. I understand this is an adjustment, but there's no mistake. Your daughter admitted you yesterday, using her medical power of attorney. You signed a voluntary admission form, agreeing to treatment here. I never signed any such thing. She opened the folder and showed me. My signature. On a Shady Pines admission form, consenting to residence and treatment. Dated yesterday. Witnessed and notarized. The medication papers. She'd hidden the admission form underneath. Made me sign without knowing what it was. This is fraud, I whispered. Mrs. Callahan, I know you're upset, but your daughter has documentation of your declining health. Missed medications, confusion, falls. I've never fallen in my life. And she has legal authority to make medical decisions on your behalf. She's acting in your best interest. Where's my phone? I want to call a lawyer. Your personal items are in the safe, for security. You'll have supervised access during designated hours. You can't keep me here. This is kidnapping. Brenda's smile never wavered, but her eyes went cold. Mrs. Callahan, if you become agitated, we may need to prescribe something to help you calm down. I'd hate for your first day to be difficult. The threat was clear. Behave, or we'll drug you into compliance. I shut up. After Brenda left, I sat on the bed, shaking with rage and fear and disbelief. My daughter, my own daughter, had imprisoned me, stolen my independence, my life, my home. And she'd done it legally, with paperwork and power of attorney and carefully constructed lies. But Jennifer had forgotten something crucial. She'd gotten greedy, moved too fast. She had power of attorney over my medical decisions. She had access to my bank accounts. But the apartment she'd been living in for 6 years rent-free, that was in my name, owned outright. Not in a trust, not in joint tenancy, just mine. And I still had enough mental clarity, despite what she'd claimed, to do something about it. I needed to get out of Shady Pines, not just physically, but legally. I needed a lawyer, needed to revoke the power of attorney, needed to expose what Jennifer had done. But first, I needed my phone. The first 3 days at Shady Pines, I played the obedient resident, ate the bland food, attended the infantilizing activities, smiled at nurses who talked to me like I was 5 years old. I needed them to think I was adjusting, compliant, not a flight risk. Meanwhile, I was planning. The facility had Wi-Fi, limited, monitored, but accessible. I befriended my roommate, Rita, an 82-year-old widow who was actually cognitively declining. She'd been there 2 years and knew the routines, the blind spots, which staff members were lazy. "Why are you here if you're not sick?" she asked one night. Her lucid moments coming in unpredictable waves. "My daughter put me here, tricked me." Rita nodded sagely. "My son did that too, said it was temporary. That was 730 days ago. I count. I'm not staying 730 days. Good luck. They make it impossible to leave." But Rita helped me anyway, told me the activities director, Marcus, was sympathetic to residents who seemed wrongly placed, told me he'd smuggled letters out for residents before, mailed them to lawyers of family members who'd actually cared. I wrote a letter to Edward Norrison, the lawyer who'd handled Robert's estate. I didn't have his address memorized, but I knew his firm's name. I wrote, "Edward, I'm being held at Shady Pines against my will. My daughter used POA fraudulently. I need help immediately. Dorothy Callahan." Marcus agreed to mail it. This happens more than you'd think, he said quietly. Family members warehousing inconvenient parents. If you're really competent, you shouldn't be here. How do I prove I'm competent? That's the catch. The system assumes if you're here, you belong here. You'd need a lawyer, a psych eval, someone to advocate for you. Can you afford that? Yes, if I can access my bank accounts, which Jennifer had frozen. I discovered that on day 4, when I finally got supervised access to my phone. I logged into my banking app. Everything was locked. A note said, "Account access restricted by POA holder." She'd locked me out of my own money. I called Jennifer. It went to voicemail. I called again and again. Finally, she answered, voice dripping with fake concern. "Mom, how are you? Are they treating you well?" "Jennifer, you need to come get me. Right now. This is illegal." "Mom, please don't get agitated. The director told me you've been having trouble adjusting." "I'm not adjusting because I shouldn't be here. You tricked me. You forged documents." "I didn't forge anything. You signed the admission form. You agreed." "You hid it under other papers. That's fraud." "Mom, you're confused. This is exactly why you need professional care. You're not thinking clearly." "I'm thinking perfectly clearly. You locked me out of my bank accounts. For your protection. You were making erratic purchases." "What erratic purchases?" The online shopping, the donations to strange charities." "I haven't made any purchases. Jennifer, I know what you're doing. This is about the apartment, isn't it? You want me out of the way so you can, what, sell it? Keep living there forever?" Silence. Long enough to confirm I was right. "Mom, I think you should talk to your doctor about adjusting your medications. You're being paranoid." "I'm not paranoid. I'm being imprisoned. And when I get out, and I will get out, you will regret this." "Mom," I hung up. My hands were shaking so hard, I dropped the phone. The nurse supervising my phone time, not Stephanie, a different one, older and less patient, took the phone back. "That's enough for today, Mrs. Callahan. You're getting upset." "I'm upset because I'm being held hostage. That kind of language won't help you. Come on, it's time for group therapy." Group therapy was a joke. A circle of elderly residents, most with actual dementia, being led through memory exercises by a counselor who clearly didn't want to be there. I sat silently, fuming, planning. Edward never responded to my letter. Maybe Marcus hadn't mailed it. Maybe Edward thought it was a prank. Maybe Jennifer had intercepted it somehow. Had she paid off the staff? How far did her manipulation reach? I needed a new strategy. On day 7, Jennifer visited. She brought flowers, grocery store carnations, and that concerned daughter smile I'd once found comforting. "Hi, Mom. You look good." "Are you Ia?" I stared at her. My daughter. The child I'd raised, sacrificed for, loved unconditionally. And she could sit there, holding flowers, pretending this was normal. "Why are you doing this?" I asked quietly. "Doing what? I'm visiting my mother." "Jennifer, stop. No more games. Tell me the truth." She set the flowers on the bedside table, sat in the visitor chair, and for the first time, her mask slicked. "You wouldn't have agreed," she said simply. "To what?" "To stepping back. To letting me handle things. Mom, you're 68 years old, living alone in a condo, managing properties, acting like you're still 40. What happens when you actually decline? When you fall or forget something critical? I'm supposed to drop everything and take care of you while you resist every bit of help. So you locked me up instead. I put you somewhere safe. This isn't safe. This is prison. It's practical. The apartment. Mom, I've been living there for 6 years. I've put money into it, made it mine. You were going to kick me out eventually. Don't pretend you weren't. Because it's my apartment. You were supposed to be there temporarily. Life happened. I couldn't afford to leave. And instead of understanding that, you kept pressuring me, making me feel like a failure. I never made you feel like anything. I gave you a place to live rent-free for 6 years and held it over my head constantly. Every conversation, every guilt trip about getting on your feet. Do you know how that felt? Like I was a charity case, an obligation. You were my daughter who needed help. And now you need help, so I'm helping. The circular logic was staggering, so you locked me up instead? I put you somewhere safe. This isn't safe. This is prison. It's practical, the apartment. Mom, I've been living there for 6 years. I've put money into it, made it mine. You were going to kick me out eventually. Don't pretend you weren't. Because it's my apartment. You were supposed to be there temporarily. Life happened. I couldn't afford to leave. And instead of understanding that, you kept pressuring me, making me feel like a failure. I never made you feel like anything. I gave you a place to live rent-free for 6 years and held it over my head constantly. Every conversation, every guilt trip about getting on your feet. Do you know how that felt? Like I was a charity case, an obligation. You were my daughter who needed help. And now you need help, so I'm helping. The circular logic was staggering. I stealing my freedom, my money, my life, by making sure you're cared for. Eventually, you'll see that, and maybe you'll thank me. She left before I could respond. I sat in that room, surrounded by pastel walls and the smell of industrial cleaner, and I understood. This wasn't about my health. This was about inheritance, about control, about a daughter who'd never learned to stand on her own and resented me for noticing. And the apartment, my apartment, was the prize she wanted. That night, I asked Rita about the other residents, who'd been wrongly committed, who'd escaped. No one escapes, she said. But Mrs. Chen on the 3rd floor, her grandson sued, got her out in 6 months. Sued the facility, sued his aunt who'd committed her, sued everyone. What did it cost? Everything she had, from what I heard. Lawyers aren't cheap, but she's home now. 6 months. I'd be 70 by then, and broke from legal fees, unless I acted faster. I convinced Marcus to let me use the facility computer during rec time. Told him I wanted to play solitaire. Instead, I logged into my email, an old account Jennifer didn't know about, one Robert and I had set up years ago for estate planning. I emailed Edward Morrison directly. Edward, this is Dorothy Callahan. I'm being held at Shady Pines under fraudulent POA. My daughter is stealing from me. I need emergency legal intervention. I can pay, but she's frozen my accounts. Please help. I sent it and prayed he checked his email more often than his mail. While I waited, I started gathering evidence. I befriended other residents, asked about their experiences, learned at Shady Pines had a history of accepting questionable admissions, families paying to warehouse inconvenient relatives. The staff was overworked, underpaid, willing to look the other way. Brenda, the director, was more businesswoman than caregiver. This place was profit-driven, not patient-driven. I documented everything. Times when medications were given late or wrong, residents being ignored when they needed help, the locks on the doors that made voluntary admission a lie. I wrote it all down in a notebook Marcus smuggled to me, hiding it under my mattress. If I was getting out, I was burning this place down on my way. Edward finally responded 3 days later. Dorothy, I got your letter and your email. I'm coming tomorrow to assess the situation. Don't do anything drastic. E. Tomorrow felt like a lifetime away. That night, Jennifer called. The nurse handed me the phone with a warning look. Mom, I heard you've been emailing people, making accusations. My stomach dropped. Had they monitored my email, or had Edward contacted her? I'm contacting a lawyer because what you did is illegal. What I did was protect you. And yourself. Mom, if you keep fighting this, I'll have to petition for full guardianship. A judge will declare you incompetent, and you'll have no say in anything. Is that what you want? You wouldn't. I would, because I love you too much to watch you self-destruct. Jennifer, think about it, Mom. Cooperate, accept help, and we can make this work. Fight me, and you lose everything. She hung up. I stared at the phone, heart pounding. Full guardianship meant she'd control everything. My money, my property, my life. I'd have no rights. I'd be legally declared incompetent. She was cornering me, and I was running out of moves. Edward Morrison arrived at Shady Pines at 10 a.m. on day 14 of my imprisonment. He was 72, silver-haired, and walked with the confidence of someone who'd spent 40 years making opponents regret underestimating him. He wore a suit that cost more than a month's stay at this facility, and he carried a briefcase that probably contained enough legal firepower to level the place. Brenda met him in the lobby. "Dorothy," Edward said, his face carefully neutral. "Let's talk." Brenda tried to stay. Edward shut the door in her face. "Tell me everything fast." I did. The forged admission form, the frozen accounts, Jennifer's threats about guardianship. I showed him the notebook of documentation, explained about the apartment, the power of attorney I'd stupidly granted, all of it. Edward listened without interrupting. When I finished, he pulled out his phone and made a call. "Yes, I need an emergency psych eval at Shady Pines Retirement Community. Independent evaluator, court recognized. Today if possible. Yes, I'll pay the rush fee. Thank you." He hung up. "Dr. Patricia Gomez will be here in 2 hours. She's going to evaluate your mental competency. If she determines you're sound, and I believe she will, we file emergency motions to revoke Jennifer's POA and get you out of here today." "What about guardianship?" Jennifer threatened. "She can threaten all she wants. Getting guardianship requires proving incompetence to a judge. If Dr. Gomez says you're competent, Jennifer's case falls apart. But Dorothy," he leaned forward, "if we do this, we're going nuclear. Your daughter will fight back. This will get ugly. Family ugly. Are you prepared for that?" I thought about the apartment, about 6 years of rent I'd never collected, about being tricked and imprisoned and threatened. "I'm prepared." "Good, because here's what else we're doing. That apartment Jennifer's living in, we're putting it up for sale today." I blinked. "We can do that?" "It's your property. You're the sole owner, and you're about to be declared mentally competent by a licensed psychiatrist. Which means any claims that you're incapable of managing your affairs are groundless. We list it, and Jennifer has 30 days to vacate. Standard eviction procedure. She'll fight it. Let her. She's been living there rent-free for 6 years. She has no legal claim to the property. This is the consequence of her actions. You don't imprison your mother and expect to keep living in her property. What about her stuff? Not your problem. She has 30 days. After that, it's legally abandoned." It felt ruthless, cold, exactly what Jennifer deserved. "Do it." Edward made more calls. He contacted a real estate agent, someone he knew, someone fast. Within an hour, a photographer was scheduled for the apartment the next day. By end of business, it would be listed. Dr. Gomez arrived at noon. She was 50-ish, professional, and thorough. She spent 2 hours evaluating me, memory tests, cognitive assessments, psychiatric screening. She asked about the admission, about Jennifer, about my life before Shady Pines. I answered everything honestly. When she finished, she wrote her report right there at the desk in my room. "Mrs. Callahan, in my professional opinion, you show no signs of cognitive impairment, dementia, or any mental condition that would warrant involuntary commitment. Your admission here appears to have been made under false pretenses. You are mentally competent to make your own medical and financial decisions." She handed Edward the report. He smiled like a shark. "Perfect. Let's get you out of here." The next hour was chaos. Edward filed emergency motions with the county court, revocation of power of attorney, habeas corpus for false imprisonment, motions to freeze any transactions Jennifer might have attempted with my accounts. He threatened Shady Pines with a lawsuit if they tried to prevent my discharge. He called the state licensing board and made very loud noises about investigating the facility's admission practices. Brenda caved immediately. If Mrs. Callahan wishes to leave, she's free to go. This was always voluntary. Nothing about this was voluntary, Edward said coldly. Expect to hear from us. By 3 p.m., I was walking out the front doors of Shady Pines. Edward drove me to his office. We had work to do. First, he contacted the banks. With Dr. Gomez's report and revocation of POA, he got my accounts unlocked. I had access to my money again. Jennifer's control was severed. Then, the apartment. Edward's real estate agent, a woman named Sandra, had already visited the property, entering legally with my keys and permission. She'd taken photos, assessed the market value, and drafted the listing. It'll go fast, Sandra said. Great location, move-in ready. I'd listed at $285,000. $285,000 for an apartment I'd bought for $90,000 20 years ago. An apartment Jennifer had been living in, improving, making hers. Listed at $290,000, I said. I want top dollar. Sandra nodded. It'll be live by tomorrow morning. Edward drafted the eviction notice himself. 30 days to vacate. No exceptions. Legal, binding, and brutal. Do you want to call her first? He asked. Give her a warning? No. Let her find out the way I found out I was in a nursing home. Suddenly. He mailed the eviction notice, certified mail, return receipt. Jennifer would have it by tomorrow. That night, I stayed in a hotel. Edward's suggestion. Don't go home yet. Let the legal actions land first. She'll be looking for you, and she'll be angry. I lay in the hotel bed, watching cable TV, eating room service, and feeling nothing. No guilt, no regret, just cold, calculated satisfaction. She'd wanted me warehoused. I'd put her property up for sale. Fair trade. The next morning, Edward's phone exploded. Jennifer had received the eviction notice. She'd seen the apartment listing. She'd realized her account's access was revoked, her POA was gone, and I was out of Shady Pines. She called Edward's office 17 times in 2 hours. He finally answered, putting her on speaker so I could hear. Mr. Morrison, there's been a terrible misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, Miss Callahan. Your mother was illegally committed. She's now free, competent, and exercising her property rights. That apartment is my home. I've lived there for 6 years. Rent-free on your mother's generosity, which you repaid by imprisoning her. I was trying to help her. She needed care. A licensed psychiatrist disagrees. Your mother is perfectly competent. The apartment is being sold. You have 30 days. I have rights. You can't just evict me. Actually, we can. Your mother owns the property. You have no lease, no rental agreement, no legal claim. You're a guest who overstayed. The eviction is legal. I'll fight this. I'll sue. With what money? You no longer have access to your mother's accounts. And frankly, Miss Callahan, if you continue this path, we'll file criminal charges for fraud, false imprisonment, and financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. Choose your next move carefully. Silence on the line. Then, her voice small and desperate. Can I talk to my mother? Edward looked at me. I nodded. Mom? Jennifer's voice cracked. Please, we can fix this. I made mistakes. I hung up. Edward nodded approvingly. Cold. Effective. I like it. But my hands were shaking. The apartment sold in 11 days. Cash offer, $295,000, $5,000 over asking. The buyers were a young couple, pregnant with their first child. looking for a place to start their family. They were excited, grateful, completely unaware of the drama their purchase had triggered. Jennifer had 29 days to vacate. She used every single one. She tried calling me 147 times. I kept count. I blocked her number. She tried showing up at my condo. I had the locks changed and told the building security to not let her in. She tried contacting my friends, my bridge club, even Mrs. Patterson, spinning stories about my mental decline and how I'd been manipulated by a predatory lawyer. No one believed her. Edward had provided copies of Dr. Gomez's evaluation to anyone who asked. The evidence was clear. I was competent. Jennifer was manipulative. She tried one last desperate move, filing for emergency guardianship anyway, claiming I was being unduly influenced and financially exploited by Edward. The hearing was short and brutal. The judge reviewed Dr. Gomez's report, Edward's documentation of Jennifer's actions, and the Shady Pines admission form I'd unwittingly signed. He asked me directly if I understood what was happening with the apartment sale. Yes, Your Honor. I'm selling property I own because I choose to. My daughter tried to imprison me to control my assets. This is a consequence. The judge reviewed Dr. Gomez's report, Edward's documentation of Jennifer's actions, and the Shady Pines admission form I'd unwittingly signed. He asked me directly if I understood what was happening with the apartment sale. Yes, Your Honor. I'm selling property I own because I choose to. My daughter tried to imprison me to control my assets. This is a The judge denied Jennifer's petition and recommended the district attorney investigate her for elder abuse. She hired her own lawyer, depleting her savings, who advised her to drop it and move on. On day 30, movers came to the apartment. I wasn't there. Edward advised against it. But Sandra, the real estate agent, supervised. Jennifer left boxes of things on the curb. Didn't take everything. Left the place in mild disarray out of spite. I didn't care. The new owners were getting it professionally cleaned anyway. Equence. The judge denied Jennifer's petition and recommended the district attorney investigate her for elder abuse. She hired her own lawyer, depleting her savings, who advised her to drop it and move on. On day 30, movers came to the apartment. I wasn't there. Edward advised against it. But Sandra, the real estate agent, supervised. Jennifer left boxes of things on the curb. Didn't take everything. Left the place in mild disarray out of spite. I didn't care. The new owners were getting it professionally cleaned anyway. The closing happened a week later. After Sandra's commission and closing costs, I netted $272,000. I put most of it into a trust with Edward as trustee, ironclad, Jennifer-proof, designated for charities and distant cousins who'd actually cared about me over the years. I kept enough to live comfortably, travel a little, maybe buy a smaller rental property as income. I was 68, not dead. I had lice left. Jennifer sent one final email. Mom, I hope you're happy. You chose money over your daughter. You destroyed our relationship over an apartment. I'll never forgive you for this. Don't expect me at your funeral. I read it once, deleted it, and felt nothing. Because she was wrong. I didn't choose money over her. I chose dignity over abuse. I chose freedom over manipulation. I chose self-respect over filial guilt. She'd made a calculated gamble that I was weak enough, old enough, lonely enough to accept imprisonment rather than fight back. She'd gambled that maternal love would override self-preservation. She lost. 3 months later, I ran into her at a grocery store. Pure chance. I was buying tomatoes. She was in the checkout line. Our eyes met across the produce section. She looked tired, older. Her hair needed cutting. Her clothes were less polished. She was living in a small apartment across town now, from what I'd heard through the grapevine. Paying rent for the first time in 6 years, struggling. Part of me, a small traitorous part, wanted to help her, to say something conciliatory, to offer an olive branch. But then I remembered waking up in that pastel room, the smell of disinfectant and defeat, the way she'd looked at me in Shady Pines, holding grocery store flowers, saying, "You'll thank me eventually." I turned away and finished my shopping. She didn't approach me. Maybe she'd learned. Maybe she was just afraid. I went home to my condo, my space, my rules, my life, and made myself dinner. Real food, cooked the way I liked it. I ate at my own table, drank wine from my own glass, and watched whatever I wanted on TV. I was alone, but I was free. And that was worth more than any relationship built on manipulation and control. People ask me sometimes if I regret it, if I miss my daughter, if family should forgive anything. I tell them, family isn't a license to abuse. Love isn't submission. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is cut out the poison, even when it shares your blood. Jennifer taught me that I could be discarded when convenient, so I taught her about consequences. We both learned something. The difference is, I learned it in time to save myself. She learned it too late to save us. And I sleep just fine with that. So here's my question for you. If your own child betrayed you like this, would you have fought back or let it go to keep the peace? Was I wrong to sell the apartment and cut her off, or wrong to wait so long before setting boundaries? Tell me honestly, because sometimes protecting yourself means losing someone you love, and I need to know if that makes me strong or just alone.